Welcome back to the BraveCo podcast, men. This week, we are going to dive into a topic that every guy should think about, talk about, know about, and it's about building wealth. I have a guest with me. His name's Carlton Moore. Carlton retired at an early age. We're going to hear a little bit about the principles that he's used in his life. We're going to hear about the mission that he's on. We're going to talk a lot about building wealth. I know this is a journey that I've been on in my own life for a while. You guys have heard me talk about it 3 years ago, realizing, man, I only got $1,000 in my bank account, and I don't want to live like this forever. So this has been a topic for me for a while of creating some mindset shifts, planning in different ways than I've ever planned before. But Carlton worked as a stock market analyst at Google. And at Google. He left the corporate world to launch Kingdom Wealth Builders, which we're going to talk about here, a completely free in-person financial course offered at churches and at Christian schools across the country. His mission is super simple: to equip believers with financial wisdom so they can steward their resources well and advance the kingdom. Carlton, thank you so much, man, for being on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? And how did you get into building wealth?
Sure thing. So a lot of people, when they look at my life and how it's turned out so far, they just assume stable home, good foundation,
Yeah.
Christian background. That was not the case. I grew up in a rocky situation. I had a rocky childhood, a lot of moving. There was some substance abuse in my family. And my response to all that was to try and escape. And I thought I could do that through achievement.
Wow.
So tried to get good grades, and it was my dream to go to Stanford University.
Wow.
The Lord made it happen by the grace of God. And while I was there, I made some decisions that were unconventional in the eyes of the world. People would say, "Oh, that's not the way to go about that," or "That's not what you should do." But they were things that just seemed to make sense to me based on what I was hearing from the Lord in my daily quiet time. So after school, I worked in the financial industry, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about
Yeah.
today. Then I spent several years at Google, and basically after a decade of investing, growing wealth based on principles I had read in books, I was able to leave the workforce and retire at an early age. I was 31 back when I retired.
Wow.
And there was a long journey after that, but for the past several years, I've been visiting churches across the country with this mission called Kingdom Wealth Building, just trying to teach God's people how to grow their wealth so they have more to give back. So that's my story in a nutshell. Where would you like to dive in?
That's incredible, man. Yeah. What city were you born in?
I was born in New Jersey, and
Okay.
we lived in New Jersey and Pennsylvania all up and down the East Coast.
Okay. That's cool. And then I guess in college, what was the different path that you took than most students were taking? Like you said that you did some things that were unconventional. What was that?
Sure. So one of the things was simply the major that I decided to pick at Stanford. So there was a lot of focus on business, hard technology, engineering, things like that, where you make the big bucks. And
Yeah.
people said, if you major in English, you're either going to be a teacher or a lawyer. There's two options. Which one are you picking? And that just didn't seem right to me. And they also, while I was in school in the summers, I worked as a camp counselor. It was, to this day, probably my favorite job I've ever
Yeah,
had.
that's cool.
And I felt I was alive, and I felt I was using the gifts and talents God had given me. And people said, "Well, okay, that's great that you enjoy doing that, but you need to get a corporate internship. You need to be in an office. You need to put this on your resume, or else you're never going to get a good job and you're not going to make good
Yeah.
money." And my favorite part of that story, I feel like it's a redemptive story of I ended up with the highest starting salary of all my friends who were saying you have to pick a certain major or have a certain summer internship.
No
So,
way. That's wild.
yeah,
And when you went into Google, what'd you go in to do?
it was kind of business sales, working with all sorts of advertising clients.
Yeah. And then you said that you You did stocks? Is that what you did?
Sure. Yeah. So I had always been curious about the stock market ever since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I read an article that said if you get a summer job and you get, I don't like to do jargon, but it was
Yeah.
saying if you get a Roth IRA and put money in, then by the time you're 65, you can be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I said, that sounds cool. So I got the summer job and I started to dabble in investing.
At how old?
Well, my first job, I was 14,
Yeah.
but, in college, when I was 18, 19, 20, that's when
Yeah.
I first started investing.
And so did you open up a Roth IRA or did you start investing in the stock market?
Both, both. I started investing in the stock market within my Roth IRA.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I don't really understand how that works much. Can you explain it a bit?
Yeah, well, the whole industry is just meant to be scary, be confusing. It's really as simple as just having a bank account. Um, it's called a brokerage account, but it's basically just a bank account that, enables you to buy stocks. And then you log in and you put some money in and kinda go through the platform, but it's pretty straightforward from there.
That's wild. How did you learn how to do that?
Trial and error. I'm a big reader, that's part of the
Yeah.
English major, and I do believe if you're willing to read books, you can do anything.
Wow.
Maybe not be an astronaut, but short of that.
Yeah.
So I just read so many books, about investing, and I said that was when I got my first job, when I finished school and I was 22. I said, "At the time, I don't have, family, I don't have other mouths to feed. I know that I will always work, so I wanna see if everything I read in these books, I if those principles work in the real world." So I said, "I wanna choose my own investments, and, I'm not gonna do just what the company's saying, 'Oh, you have to put your money into this short list.'" I said, "I wanna pick my own stocks," and by the grace of God, they ended up being some of the best performing stocks of the decade.
Wow. That's wild. That must have felt really exciting.
It did. It was more gradual than I make it sound today,
Yeah,
but, the Lord works in mysterious ways is all I'll say.
that's cool. Yeah, I know growing up, my dad was a businessman and he owned several businesses and I watched him succeed and struggle. It was one of the reasons why I actually went, man, I don't want to get into business. I never want to get into business because it was just so challenging, you know? And and then like I said, about 3 years ago, I realized I've been a pastor on staff for 20 years at Bethel Church, which has been awesome, incredible. One of the downsides for me, not because of the church, but just the way I grew up was I didn't really think about investments. I thought about kingdom investments as far as like what I'm sowing into my mind and my relationships and um my kids, my marriage, God. But I didn't think anything about financial investments, hardly at all. And so probably like 3 years ago, I had this like catalytic moment in my life where I was on my way to Thailand to go, Taiwan to go preach and speak. It was a really uh, intense trip, just the amount of speaking and stuff. And when I was on my way there, my wife called me and she said, "Hey, just want to let you know where we're at. We have $1,000 in the bank, and which $1,000 in the bank is awesome if you're 15. It's not awesome if you're, 44 years old and you got 5 kids. It's tough. And so I came back from that trip and I knew I have to do something different. I can't keep doing life the same way that I've been doing. One, inflation is so crazy that I have to work more than I've been working before. But two, if I don't think about the future, if I don't think about investing, if I don't think about how I'm setting myself up in the future, I'm going to end up having to preach and having to travel and having to write books for the rest of my life. And honestly, all that stuff's great, but not if you're a slave to it. And I've seen both worlds. I've seen where I get to do that stuff. People invite me places and My wife's writing a book right now, which is great because she wants to and has a dream to do it. But I've also seen men who have been in the ministry for a long time, like myself, and you get put in a spot where it's all you know. You didn't save anything, you didn't invest anything. And so now you have to go take these speaking engagements. You have to write books, you have to do those things. And I think it becomes this big burden. And I know for a lot of men out there, not just pastors like myself, just the average everyday guy like myself is going, man, how do I get out of this rut of living paycheck to paycheck? How do I get out of this rut of inflation just I mean, like, inflation's real right now. It's hammering guys. How do I start setting myself up for the future so that I can invest into whatever I want to? I can invest in my kids. I can invest into the kingdom. I can invest in, and to me, there's not a difference between investing in your kids and the kingdom, but I'm just making a point. Like, how do we get out of this spot where we're grinding so much, not saving anything and get it more into being in control of our finances?
Sure thing. And thanks for being vulnerable and
Yeah.
kind of sharing that anecdote. I think what you were saying hits on a lot of things that Christian community, especially, but a lot of everyday Americans feel when it comes to finance, which is just fear.
Yeah.
I don't understand this stuff. There's jargon. It's confusing. It's scary.
Yeah.
I have mouths to feed. It's reality. Maybe I'll just hold on to what I have instead of trying to grow it. Kind
Yeah.
of like the parable of the
Right.
talents,
Yes.
the third servant who just buried it in the ground.
Yeah.
That's real.
It is
That is
real.
real. Um, there's this quote you might have heard about the tree where they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and the second best time to plant a tree
It's
is
today.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
And I think that that applies to finance where people are, "Oh, sounds great," or, "Oh, I could become a millionaire if I start when I'm a teenager." Well, I'm 27 now, or I'm 47 now, and I missed the boat. And I just wanna share with and through Kingdom Wealth Building that this is available to everyone no matter how old you are. You can still be making wise decisions with your finances and growing them.
What does that look like? What do you think the first step for a guy is?
First step, besides getting signed up to take the Kingdom Wealth Building class,
Yeah.
first step is really just removing the fear, saying, "Okay, I want to do this. I want to be intentional about it." Um, and then it's really just taking a little bit of money and investing it. And once people kind of see, it's like a snowball. Once you see your money start to grow, it could be I had $5 and now it's $10, or I had $100 and now I have $250. That bit gives confidence to really see, okay, I understand this whole idea of money growing on top of money. I understand topics like compound interest, for example.
Yep.
And now that I believe in it, I'm going to look at my savings differently. I'm going to make better decisions about how much we have at the end of a week or the end of a month. And it becomes just more valuable to actually try to invest and grow the money.
So in your Kingdom Wealth Building course, are you teaching people how to invest in the stock market? Or are you teaching like take me through a little bit of what your principles are and how you're teaching people to grow to build wealth?
Sure. Yeah. Overall, this is not a get rich quick. It's not a,
Yeah.
prosperity gospel. It is about making wise decisions over a period of time to grow money steadily. So you mentioned US stock market. That's one of the major things we cover. We also touch on real estate. We touch on how to have savings wisely, how to have money that's growing, even if it's just sitting in a savings account. Are you getting a good interest rate on it? Things like that. So it really covers a whole spectrum of topics.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, do you I guess do you find a lot of guys in the same boat where uh they want to grow? I guess like a lot of people that I know don't have a bunch of money right now, right? They've got a little bit of savings, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Like, what do you feel like is the best investment, the best place to start for a guy like that?
Yeah. Well, the one of the coolest things about investing is it's not about how much you start out with.
Okay.
It's not amount that you have invested, it's length of time invested that makes the biggest impact. So there's all sorts of situations where someone will say, "Oh, maybe they start a job in their early 20s and they're living paycheck to paycheck or they're paying off loans or whatever it may be." And then say, "Once I get more established, when I get in my 30s or beyond, then I'll start investing." Someone could get in their 30s or beyond, have a higher salary, have more money to invest, but someone who started when they were
Yeah.
younger with a smaller amount actually ends up with a higher amount. So it's really about just being motivated to participate and not worrying about how much you have. I do have suggestions for people who, if they say, I literally don't have a single penny to invest, there are kind of ways that,
Yeah, what would you say for that person?
yeah. So I would say I kind of one thing we say in our class, we call it hidden cash, is there's places where people have no idea that they're losing money or leaking money. So one of the big things people have no idea about are hidden fees that the financial industry takes out of people's bank accounts without them knowing or noticing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they do it in really clever ways. So if I said to you, at some point in the next month, in the middle of the night, I'm gonna go wherever you live and take a eyedropper and take some oil out or some gas out of your car.
Yeah.
Just an eyedropper. You probably say, "Oh, all right, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird, but no skin off my back."
Yeah.
But if I said, "I'm gonna do that a couple times during the year, and at the end of the year, it'll have been $100 worth of gasoline that I took out,"
Yeah.
that's kind of a different story.
Yeah. And so, like you're saying that there's places like that. What can the average person do about that?
Yeah. So, and just before I answer that question, I want to share that this is something that's actually happened to me.
Yeah.
So, I was logging into one of my accounts. It was a 401k retirement account from a job that I had had 10 years ago. And I just happened to log in. I won't say what bank it was
Yeah.
because they'll think bad of me. They might come after me. I logged in and I clicked the drop down menu, and then I clicked the drop down menu, and I clicked another drop down menu. And it just happened to say the night before, it said $25 bookkeeping fee. And I called them up and I said, "Hey, what is this $25 bookkeeping fee?" And they said, "Oh, it's oh boy, he's calling us. Oh man, no one ever calls." And they said, "Well, it's a $25, it's a bookkeeping fee. We keep the books and blah, blah, yada, yada, yada." I said, "I'm looking at a bookcase in my home right now. I can keep books. I don't need you to take this $25 fee." And as it turns out, it was $25 quarterly. So
Oh,
4 times a year.
yeah.
So that's $100 at
Yeah.
the end of the year. And it was a job that I had had 10 years prior. So that's $100 a year. That's
Right.
$1,000.
Right.
And one of the things we teach in Kingdom Wealth Building is how money grows. So you mentioned $1,000
Yeah.
earlier. If you take $1,000, put it in the US stock market, over the course of several decades, it actually can grow quite easily to $117,000. That's
Wow.
one of the examples that we use. So I share that story because this is a really big deal. They're taking
Yeah.
money out of your gas tank. You know, when I get to be in my 70s or 80s, that's $100,000 that will not be in my
Right.
account just because of this $25 fee. And they do it in a clever way. They call it, oh, trustee fee, advisor fees, administrative fees, etc. They're really small amounts.
Yeah.
And so to come full circle, for the people who say, I don't have a single penny to invest. Well, one place to look is, are they taking fees out of my account throughout the year? And so we encourage everyone to call up their bank and say, "Hey, from January to December," again, I don't like to do jargon, but the
Yeah,
term is fee schedule.
yeah,
Say, "Hey, what is the fee schedule from January to December? How much money did you take out of my account for fees?" And what we find in a lot of cases, for most people, it's hundreds of dollars, and that's a great amount to get started.
and you can dispute that, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the reality is, again, I hope they don't come after me when they hear this,
They won't.
but spiritual warfare protection, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
so
I don't
yeah,
know that any banks are listening to the BraveCo podcast, but maybe.
yeah. So the reality is a lot of these fees are just made up. They
Yeah,
have random names, like I was saying,
yeah,
and they can just take advantage of people because they can, because this stuff is not taught in schools.
yeah,
And so most banks, they're making money they're making money off you if you have money sitting in the bank.
yep,
They're doing loans and
yep,
small business loans and auto loans, etc. So say to them, when you call them up, you say, "Hey, I've been a customer with you for however many years. I have however many dollars you have sitting there. Say, look, I this is my hard-earned money. I know that you're making money with it just sitting there day after day. So please don't charge me,
yeah,
$20 a year for X or
yep,
$5 if I use an ATM
yep.
at a restaurant. I know that you don't need it. And if you're not willing to work with me
I'll
on
move
that,
my money somewhere else.
exactly, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's
That's a
just one place. It's just one.
it's a great tip.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody has $1,000, the guy has $1,000 and that's all he has, what's your first go-to spot that he should be investing that?
A lot of things we talk about is how to put it in the US stock market,
Okay.
in terms of the risk that's involved.
So you like the stock market?
I do. It's been good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, I know there can be a lot of fear, but
Yeah.
we talk about the history of it. We talk about best case, worst case scenarios. We talk about reasonable expectations,
Take me
things
through
like
some
that.
of that.
What would you like to know? Give me specifics.
Yeah. I mean, if I had $1,000 and you're going to talk about the stock market, and I was saying literally to you, which I am today, like I have $1,000. How do I get started in the stock market? How do I know what good stocks are? And like how long should I be expecting to invest that money for?
Sure. So I would say looking at the broader US stock market. So this is not picking individual
Yeah, yeah.
stocks. This is not saying, "Oh, I want to do Apple stock on Monday and I want to do McDonald's stock on Tuesday."
Yeah.
And which one's doing really well? Is Tesla up? Is Tesla down, riding the waves?
Yep.
Kind of buying into the broader US stock market. If people do that, they can expect to get, double digit returns on their money year in and year out over time,
Got it.
and that really builds up quickly. That's taking $1,000 and over the course of a lifetime, that's, as I was saying before, 100,000, somewhere around there.
So like kind of your philosophy, or at least one philosophy
One
in this,
philosophy, yeah.
one philosophy with this type of investing is you're not in it for the short term. You're looking at year after year after year, and you're thinking through, okay, if you don't ride the waves, if you don't worry about the waves, then you can invest $1,000 and probably pretty much close to guarantee that throughout your lifetime, the stock market has always pretty much gone up through a long period of time. Is that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of, because this is a big thing. There's fear there, right?
Yeah.
If I take my money, my hard-earned money, if I put it in the stock market, what if it goes down?
Yeah.
And the stock market does go up and
You're
down.
like, it's gonna go down. I
Yeah,
can guarantee you.
it
Yeah.
goes up and down. It goes up and down
Yeah.
every month, every week, every
Yeah.
day, every hour. But over time, it only goes one direction. It's up and to the right. So
Yeah.
we kind of show all the different examples.
Makes sense.
One of the things that really takes away the fear we talk about, and I have visuals for this
Yeah,
kind
it's
of in the
great.
class, but, if you look at any time someone invested in the US stock market, if you look at, "Oh, I started we're about to start the month of March." If I start March 1, where am I, March 31? If you look at any kind of month in the history of the stock market going back 100 years, they found it's something like 60% of the time after 30 days, you're in positive territory.
Oh,
And then they said, "What about year by year?" So, 19 start in 1975, end of 1975, or 2005 or 21, whatever it may be. They found 75 plus percent of the time it's in positive territory. And then they looked at 20 years, if you can invest for 20 years. So it's 100%,
wow.
100%. There's no 20-year period where it's not positive.
Wow.
So
Where you don't at least get your money back
yeah, exactly.
as
Yeah,
opposed to, like, really grow it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's man, that's really interesting, and it puts you back in the driver's seat. I the stock market, I think now, because we have social media, because we have YouTube, even AI, with, like, ChatGPT, we can like, a lot of people can learn so much easier than our my parents, had to figure stuff out. And I do. My son the other day, I was talking to him, and he started learning how to day trade. I was like, "How'd you learn how to day trade?" He goes, "Oh, a friend from high school, um, learned. He started day trading, and like he did really good. I mean, became a millionaire at a young age. He's doing awesome." And they basically taught themselves how to day trade, watching YouTube videos, um, following their favorite traders online. There's whole communities and forums and stuff like that. And I'm not telling people you should go learn how to day trade. I'm just saying, like,
Nor am I, nor am
yeah,
I. Yeah.
yeah. I'm saying that's what, like, they're figuring out how to do stuff that very, 20 years ago would have been, you would have had to, like, I don't know, probably go to school to learn how to do that or something. I don't know how they figured it out, but very risky. And so he's like, "Yeah, dad, I do 2 or 3 hours a day." He's got all these parameters that he follows. I don't take massive risks. I don't put money in I'm not willing to lose. That type of stuff. And he's done, like, I'm looking at him over the course of a year and a half. He's done awesome. My whole point isn't go day trade. My whole point is my son, who's, 25 years old, has taken upon himself how to grow and build his wealth, and whether he continues to do that or not, and he's had times where he's lost, but I've watched him take way more risk than what I was willing to take, even in trying to figure something out. It was incredible because he started with buying and selling cars. He's a lot like hopefully he's okay with me telling these stories, but he's a lot like my dad, entrepreneurial, very entrepreneurial, and so he started buying and selling cars when he was, like 17 years old, and I was like,
Wow.
"Son, what are you doing?" It was just in him. He had this drive. He probably bought and sold like 30 cars, and he was just so willing to figure it out and to take a risk and to look at what would be a good investment. And, he spent tons of times on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and getting all these deals. Well, that turned into him going, "Okay, I wanna grow a business." So he started a business, and he, started a tree climbing business, and he didn't even know how to climb trees. He just started watching YouTube one day and was like, "I can do this. I can figure this out," and, bought all the gear, learned how to climb in my yard, and then worked for a tree company for a very short period of time and went, "I can do this stuff on my own." Then went on his own, started a business. He didn't know how to start a business. He just asking and learning and growing and grinding. And pretty soon, before you know it, like, he's making more money than me. And then, I'm just like, I look at the younger generation. My whole point is I look at the younger generation who are willing to put themselves out there and not even take a ton of risk. Like, because again, I don't think that the average guy should be going and risking tons of stuff. I think the average guy should be going, I'm not fixed. My life isn't fixed. My marriage this isn't the best marriage I could have. I don't have to stay stuck in pornography forever. I don't have to have a bad relationship with my kids. My finances could grow. I have to do the work to do the research to step out a little bit. In in any area of our life that we want to grow, there's always the risk of investing something and it not working. But the risk of not doing it ensures that you're stuck in this spot forever. And I think when we really take a look at it, I'm I'm inspired by my son. I was looking back at my son and I was like, uh, I'm so inspired that he's taken the initiative in his life. It really started at like 23 years old to go, okay, I want to be powerful over my finances. I want to be powerful over where I spend and invest my day, my 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with working for somebody. There's, but I'm gonna be the one that decides and chooses that. And I really think there's a massive opportunity for the average man. When I say average, I'm talking about myself, for every man to be able to go, I want to start gaining control back of my life in every area, from my marriage to my kids to the what school how we raise our kids, the schooling that they're getting, the education, but then also this big area of finances. And you're right, finances has been this really scary. There are some people who know how to do it, and those people become wealthy. There's some people that know how to flip homes and do real estate investments, and there's some people that know how to do the stock market, and there's some people, and I think that we're moving into an age and into an era where we're separating the some people to a lot of people can figure it out. There's a lot of pathways right now. I think Dave Ramsey was a big, um, I would say Dave Ramsey and Mario Yamasaki, I think is his name, were trailblazers in this area of taking your finances into your own hands, start investing for the future, and grow beyond just working a 9 to 5 job. Start investing your money. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but it makes me excited for where we're at and where we're headed, because I really do think that a lot of the mystery, which seems to be a lot of what you're teaching people, a lot of taking the mystery and the fear out of getting control of your finances.
Amen. Amen to so many of the things that you just said. While you're speaking, it made me think of the parable of the talents, and
Yeah, talk about it.
you know, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with the parable of the talents, but I'm thinking of, okay, in that parable, in that example, the master comes back and he says, "I wanted you to grow." In the parable, it's double
Yeah,
what I gave you, and the talent, the of the word is money. And I'm thinking, okay, we live in a tough day and age in terms of all of Christendom for a lot of reasons. We've got crazy things going on in the
yeah,
world. Um, but their age was also tough for a lot of different things. It was harder to just have a warm, hot meal and take a shower.
yep,
They didn't have a lot of the conveniences we have. And when I read the parable of talents, I'm like, how did these men, how did they double what they were like?
yeah,
What would I do if I was in that day and age? Would I try to borrow someone's oxen and say, "Hey, can I use your oxen overnight and
yeah.
we'll switch and then next week," like what would you do if you had to double your money
Yeah,
in
it's real.
those times, right? And
Maybe buy some sheep and butcher them up and sell the meat for more than you bought the sheep for.
exactly, I would need to somehow bring ChatGPT
Yeah,
with me
yeah,
to figure out how to make money in
yeah,
in biblical
it's
times,
true.
right? But that was still the parable
Yeah,
and
it's
what he
wild.
put in the word. And so, yeah, as you were saying of the example with your son, we live in a age where we have a lot of opportunity. There
Yeah.
are a lot of things. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's also we all are also empowered, and it is way easier than the financial industry wants people to know or realize.
Talk about that a bit.
Sure,
Why do you say that? And why do you think that they don't want people to understand how to do it?
because the whole financial industry is set up, and it rests on a foundation of them knowing more than the average American and being able to take advantage of the average
Mm,
American. So we talked about fees. We There's jargon. There people will maybe a regular working American goes into a financial office and sits down, and a guy has a suit and tie, and he puts a bunch of charts in front of them and says, "Hey, let me manage your money for you
yeah,
because you can't do it yourself."
yeah.
And what I try to do with Kingdom Wealth Building is I worked in that industry. I know how the sausage is made. I'm kind of pulling back the curtain like it's the Wizard of Oz and saying you don't have to be afraid of the Wizard of Oz. He's not that scary. The more you know, the less scary it is. And so,
With your Kingdom Wealth Building course, are you helping people understand, like, clearly these are the stocks, or this is how to figure out what stocks to put in, or this is how you know if you should get into real estate, or this is how you should know if you should do a Roth IRA? Like, is your explain a little bit about your course. I'm curious.
sure, the answer is yes to all that.
Okay.
It's designed so that people can run their finances for the rest of their life. It's designed to give them everything they need to know. So we cover real estate, we cover Roth IRA, we cover saving for college loans, we cover debt, we cover credit cards even. I know we're not supposed to say that, Dave Ramsey disciples are
No, I
listening,
mean, yeah. So
but
you cover all that stuff.
we cover all that, and I'm this is not a business model. So it's I'm not trying to sell a book, or
Your course is free.
it's completely free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why you're on here today.
That's why I'm here today. Yeah.
I'm saying we're not like I'm not inside. I'm not getting paid anything for
Yeah.
this. Like your course is free. BraveCo is free. We offer BraveCo to men for free. We want to just help men. So this is a huge part of why you're on here is we want to give men the opportunity to take control of their finances. We want to give churches the ability to, give a product to their congregants who can really help them take control of their finances, and so that's what you're providing, which is awesome.
Amen. Yeah. The only thing greater than things like this being free is the God of the universe hanging and bleeding on a cross, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
true. Man, I really love this. Have you seen people, maybe I should back up. Like, how long have you been doing this for? And then have you seen people get really good breakthrough going through your course? And do you have some testimonies of that?
sure. So, this started out 4 years ago, kind of similar to BraveCo based
Yeah,
on some things I heard on some other
that's
podcasts.
awesome.
And was question was, oh, yeah, so it started out as a small group in my local church where I just said, "Hey, I kinda God gave me these some ideas to explain finance to people in a simple and fun and creative way, and I put it in front of my pastor, and I said, "This is kind of different and unique," and he said, "Rock and roll, like, I
Yeah.
know your story." And so it started out there, and then it just spread from church to church across the country, and it's been 4 years now, so now I'm starting to go back to churches for a second time, and people are saying, "Hey, um, I didn't believe you at first that, if I did these steps that
Yeah.
I would have more money and grow my money, but that was a couple years ago, and now I'm ready to withdraw, and what's the best way for me to take money out?" So that's really encouraging.
Yeah, that is.
And then my favorite anecdote is there was a young married couple, and they had been reaching out to me for advice, and they kind of inspired this whole kingdom wealth building thing, and they just shared with me, just anecdotally, they were saying that their their parents, so senior citizen age, they need to go into assisted living,
Mm,
and they're able to pay for their parents to have assisted living
wow.
because of the principles that they learned and the way that their money's grown over the last
That's
couple of years.
awesome.
So,
I love that. How can churches, or men, get access to what you're doing?
sure, it's really easy. All they need to do is go to the website. It's Kingdom Wealth Building, and the website is kingdomwb.org. And there's just a simple sign up form, schedule a call. Anyone from church leadership will hop on the call, and it's first come, first serve.
That's great, man. I really love what you're doing, and I think that there's there's a massive need across our country to educate people and to give people the confidence that you can actually make a difference in your own home, but also the real power is when you when a man learns a skill like this, or a woman, when a person learns a skill like this, well, you now affect every person that you're connected to. And that's what I love the most. It's why Lauren and I, my wife and I, spend a lot of time building marriages and teaching people how to build a healthy marriage. Because, man, if I help a couple learn really solid principles, I didn't just help that couple. I helped every couple that couple's connected to. And I just love what you're doing. I love that you're traveling across the country. I love that you're offering this for free. I love that you have a vision to see the everyday, um, mom and dad and person take back control of their life and get to a place where God's put you. You're able to travel around, you're able to offer stuff that really blesses people. And so, Carlton, thank you so much, man, for coming on the podcast, for putting yourself out there. I'm sure a lot of guys will go and check out your Kingdom Wealth Building course. Again, it's free, guys, if you want to go check that out. And I just appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. BraveCo men, go check that out. If you're looking at your bank account and you go, man, I wish there was more, then that's a starting point. I think for me, unless you have a really good plan already that you've been following that's working for you, start here. Go check out the Kingdom Wealth Building course. Go look at it and get powerful over your finances, over where you're investing. And, the idea that you're going to get rich tomorrow, I think us, we have to get rid of that idea. I do. I think that that's one of those toxic things. I use that word toxic on purpose. It's like the guy who wants to go lift weights for a week and see a result in his body. You're not. You're just going to feel really sore. But I think when we start to look at these key areas in our life, you're looking at 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. Like, where do we want to be 20 years financially? That's really the mindset that Lauren and I have taken is where do we want to be 20 years from now? And we've backed up and gone, okay, then I need to start sacrificing today. I need to start doing some small things that get me a return that I can repeat over a long period of time. And guys, it's making a difference. It's making a difference in my life. I've watched it make a difference in my parents' lives. And so if you don't have a plan, start here. Start with this Kingdom Wealth Building course. Go on there, check it out, and get on your way. Guys, thanks so much for watching this week. We'll see you next week on the BraveCo podcast. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.